There have been shocking revelations from the Epstein files in just the past 24 hours. And then you had Kash Patel in Milan partying it up with the gold-winning Olympic hockey team from the United States. He was chugging beers. He wore the gold medal. This was after his spokesperson denied that he was going to be partying or hanging out or even going to the Olympic Games at all when he flew to Milan. They said, it was just an official visit. But I think it's important that we recognize this is all connected. Look, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, that whole crew, they have the goods on Donald Trump. They have Donald Trump by the you-know-what because they're actively, in my opinion, co-conspirators with Donald Trump in covering up a child sex trafficking ring. They are covering up Epstein files. There are still about, I think, around 50 terabytes of Epstein files that are missing. That could be tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of documents that are far more devastating than even the devastating documents that have been released. And we know from the documents that have been released, the redacted documents have 38,000 references to Donald Trump in it. We believe there could be as many as 1 million references in the unredacted files. And then in addition to the unredacted files, there's those additional 50 terabytes of documents. And so Kash Patel and this whole Trump regime, like, to me, they're out there gallivanting around the country and gallivanting around the world because they know what Donald Trump was up to. They now have all of the information, not just on Donald Trump, but his inner circle and their friends and the Epstein class. And this is protectors of the Epstein class. So I think their view is, what's Donald Trump going to do with me? Watch me drink a beer. I'm not even going to work hard anymore. It doesn't even make a difference anymore. I'm going to give my middle finger to everybody. I'm going to fly on private jets. You can't. I'm untouchable because I know what's really gone down in the Epstein files, right? Patel's been read on. Bondi's been read on. This whole regime, Bongino, they've seen it. So I think they think there's nothing Donald Trump can do to them. I mean, just look at Ghislaine Maxwell, a convicted child sex trafficker who's getting VIP treatment in Club Fed. And, she had Donald Trump's number 2 at the DOJ, Trump's criminal defense lawyer, meet with her. And after interviewing her, and she said exactly what Trump wants, she got moved to this Club Fed VIP facility. So I think people are like, oh, got it. So Ghislaine has dirt on Donald Trump. Look how she's treated. Kash Patel and Bongino, they're like, look, okay, what's he going to do to us? He ain't going to do anything to us. He's scared of the info we have. By the way, you know who else knows that? Iran and Iranian hackers who are out there saying to Donald Trump as well, guess what we did when we hacked Truth Social back in 2025? Guess what we have when we hacked your campaign back in 2024? Guess what we have when we've hacked Ehud Barak's email addresses? Those Iranian hackers, 313 group and that whole crew over there, they've been hacking and doing spear phishing into Trump and Trump's inner circle for many, many years right now. And the Ayatollahs even hinted that they've got dirt on Donald Trump. So let's just take a look at some of these revelations just from the past 24 hours. Aaron Parnas from the MeidasTouch Network, he broke the following. I mean, it's in the Epstein files, but he brought attention to this yesterday. In 2020, 1 year after Epstein died, an assistant United States attorney for the Eastern District of New York discussed a confidentiality agreement with the Southern District of New York in connection with the investigation into the murder of Jeffrey Epstein. That's how they were referring to it within the prosecutor's office when in Trump's first regime, in Trump's first administration, the murder investigation and getting out confidentiality agreements like the one we did when Epstein was murdered, not died by suicide, murdered. And you know from our previous reporting as well here on the MeidasTouch Network that the day before Epstein died, the SDNY prosecutors in New York, they prepared a press release saying that Epstein died the day before he died. They had prepared the documents saying he died, and it didn't have the language by suicide or by apparent suicide. They just said that he died And I think they basically implied that it was a murder as well. Then the next day they said died by apparent suicide after he actually did die. Let's just take a look at this email. It's dated June 11th, 2020, and it's from the prosecutors to each other, from Eastern District of New York prosecutors to Southern District of New York prosecutors. I'm an AUSA, an assistant United States attorney in Eastern District of New York, and I'm working on an investigation into the death of an inmate at Brooklyn MDC, Metro Detention Center. The OCME told me that it signed a confidentiality agreement in connection with the investigation into the murder of Jeffrey Epstein. We were hoping to extend a similar agreement, and I wanted to see if you could share the agreement or boilerplate version of it. I'm happy to speak over the phone if that's easier. My cell is, in other words, let's not put any more of this on email. OCME, the Office of Chief Medical Examiner, signed a confidentiality. Isn't there already HIPAA and privacy rules? Why would they need to separately sign a confidentiality order into the murder, is what the prosecutors use the word. Jeffrey Epstein. That was in the past 24 hours. That story broke. Connor Stringer writes, huge story this evening. This is from The Telegraph. Great reporting from The Telegraph. Jeffrey Epstein paid private detectives to remove equipment from his home and store them in secret storage units across the U.S. Search warrants reviewed by The Telegraph suggest U.S. authorities never raided the lockers, raising the possibility they may contain unseen evidence relating to Epstein and his associates. Epstein hid computers and photographs from the United States authorities in secret storage lockers, The Telegraph can reveal. Documents uncovered by this newspaper show the pedo paid private detectives to remove equipment from his Florida home in an apparent attempt to prevent investigators from finding it. The documents also show that he rented 6 storage units across the U.S. and used them to house items from his properties, including computers from his private Caribbean island. He leased at least 1 unit from 2003. When he was part of a Florida social set that included Donald Trump. Then they show credit card receipts obtained by The Telegraph, show regular storage payments continuing until 29, the year of his death. The search warrants reviewed by The Telegraph suggest that U.S. authorities never raided these lockers, raising the possibility that they may contain unseen evidence relating to Epstein and his associates. The documents The Telegraph unearthed show that he instructed his private detectives to do this. He discussed moving computers and CDs from his private island in the U.S. Virgin Island, from West Palm Beach, from New York, and he was apparently hiding this from the government, and he was hiding this from prosecutors and from investigators who, by the way, doing basic investigative work could have been able to find this. So big story there. And then, the Midas Touch Network reported over this past weekend, and others did as well, that Ghislaine Maxwell this is the part that we reported that I think is important. She's pretending that she's unable to secure a personal lawyer for herself in connection with the criminal case where she was already convicted of child sex trafficking, and she's done with her appeals. She already lost at the Supreme Court, so she's done appealing. She's now filing what's called a habeas petition, which any prisoner can file, just saying they've discovered some new evidence, extraordinary circumstances exist, so that she should be released from prison. And she says, this new information involves some of the stuff that she's seen in the files. She has the audacity to say the files vindicate her. She goes, now that I've seen the files, they vindicate me because it shows, she argues, she's a sicko. She's a sicko pedo. She says it vindicates her because it shows that no minors were involved, that the survivors lied about being minors, she said. The hell are you talking about, you sicko pedo? That's what she says. But anyway, she pretends she can't have a lawyer, but then her lawyers, in a civil case that's been closed, regarding Virginia Giuffre suing Ghislaine back in 2015. And we know Virginia Giuffre died by suicide about a year ago or so. That Virginia in 2015, Giuffre sued Ghislaine. And in that case, Maxwell has hired lawyers to try to block 90,000 documents from coming out that are still being blocked in the Epstein files. And she's saying her privacy concerns are at stake and that this is Rule 6